board members joining us. So welcome, Jamie and Brian. So let me go around and we'll do a confirmation of attendance. So we have Susan McCready.
Yes, here.
Teresa.
Present.
Okay. Jamie.
Here.
Brian.
Here.
And of course myself. We have Gloria and Mark as well. So welcome aboard, Jamie, Brian. It's nice to have you. To see the board. I guess I do want to take a moment just to thank, and they're absent today, obviously. I hope that they could hear this, but Kate and Heather for the time that they gave to our community and to our school board. And Heather really gave a lot of time to me over the years. I really appreciate that. Taught me a lot from her time here. And I always looked up to her and tried to do what I could do to fulfill all those great things that she had put in front of us and the way she led. So thank you to both of them. And so that is that. Also wanted to acknowledge it's Teacher Appreciation Week. So I think it's important for me and from everyone at the board that teachers know that we know that this has been a tough year. We did acknowledge that in the town report. If you haven't had a chance to read that, we did say that in the town report. And thank you to all of this faculty, staff, and admin at MDES and AOS for this time, this whole year. I do hope that this summer gives a respite to everybody in our AOS and MDES. So thank you, and thanks for Teachers Appreciation Week. Hopefully that's going well for you, Gloria.
Oh, it's great. We started Monday. There were signs to greet all the teachers that magically appeared before we all got here to school all over the campus. Signs, inspirational signs. And then, boy, what have we had? We've had flowers given to us. The PTO gave us a meal today with a little treat bag full of all sorts of goodies that were the Swedish fish were a big hit by the teachers. Tasha's sharing lunch with everybody on Friday. The Colonels brought donuts by this morning, which was really thoughtful. Yeah, it's been a nice week.
Good, that's great. Well, everybody does appreciate all the work that's been put into this year, so thank you. So our next order of business is the approval of minutes from April 7th, our last meeting. Yes. Mark.
Excuse me. If I could just go back for a second, and
sure.
If I may, and congratulations to Jamie and Brian, and welcome. And I know that I just wanted to put out there that under the approval of the voucher, there's a lot of things that you probably have questions on, and I'd be happy to schedule an orientation that either works at a time convenient for both of you or separately. But one of the pieces is acclimating to the DocuSign system with our voucher. And I know that if you were included in the email and you saw, we do electronic processing of the voucher. And I wanted to be able to make sure that you were comfortable with both reviewing it and approving it. So I did want to make sure that I just reached out to both of you to let you know that both myself, Nancy, and the staff were here and available to answer any questions and work with you. And if I may, Todd, just on that vein, we're getting ready to unveil email accounts for all of our board members as were requested. So we'll have more information on that next week. But Brian and Jamie, I'll share my contact information. And if you have any questions, feel free to call anytime. Okay. But Todd, I think and I didn't know at the time if Jamie or Brian had been sworn in, which they are.
Yeah.
Teresa and Susan and you all could go through and just make sure that the voucher's approved so we can get that stuff out. That would be awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll get to that voucher just in a moment, but thanks, Mark.
Yep.
So we do have a minutes to approve from April 7th. If I can get a motion to approve.
So move that we approve the minutes for April 7th,
2021.
Thank you, Teresa. And second by Susan. Okay.
I'm sorry, Todd. I jumped in. I was looking at the agenda, and I've got 11 agendas, and on one of the agenda I was looking at, the voucher was before the minutes. I apologize.
That's all right. You don't have to apologize to me. I know how this all works. We'll get through everything. Sometimes I wonder if you're driving from, well, not now, but driving from place to place. Yeah.
I was looking at the high school agenda, which has voucher, then minutes, and I pulled the wrong one. Sorry.
That's all right. So we'll take a vote on that. I know Jamie and Brian, you weren't here for that. So we'll go around the board here. Susan?
Approve.
Teresa?
Approve.
I approve as well. I haven't dealt with this yet, Mark, but Jamie and Brian, I guess not being here in the past, I don't know that we need a vote from the two of them on this.
If Jamie and Brian have been sworn in, which they can vote, but normally, what they probably want to do, because they weren't part of that, is they would probably want to abstain from voting on these because they weren't part of the deliberations.
Sounds right to me. So Jamie?
Yep.
You'll abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, and Brian?
Yes, abstain, thanks.
Great, thank you. So do you have that, Gloria? Great, thank you. Didn't mean to make it messy. But so the next is the approval of the voucher. We had a voucher go out digitally, as Mark talked about earlier. It was for $34,855.32. And I always take a moment, even though it goes out digitally, I always take that moment now to see if there's any questions. Obviously, there's always an opportunity to email Mark or Gloria if you have any other questions on the voucher, but I feel it's important to at least stop here again to see if there are any questions at this point. It looked like, I know, Brian, were able to get into that, correct? Yep, okay. So are there any questions on the voucher?
Yeah, I got into it. I hadn't been sworn in, and also just from my experience in life, I don't usually sign 40-page financial documents until I know what they are. So, I guess, do they usually go out just a couple hours before? And then second, is there a budget that we should be comparing it to, right? I mean, what are we looking for in approval beyond just approval, or should we be looking at anything at all?
Do you want me to take that, or do you want?
Yeah, you will. I will say this: that they try to get it out as soon as they can, Jamie, right. And sometimes it is a little later in the day. And yes, you're right. You don't need to get to it before the meeting, but they do try to get it out as quickly as they can. And I think over time, at least for myself, I've learned to look for what I needed to look for in that. But I know that Gloria had her hand up, but I'll turn it over to either Mark or Gloria.
Well, I'll just, before Gloria, just say that, yeah, those are good questions. And I'm the same way, Jamie. We wouldn't want anybody just blindly signing something. Number one, there is, I think as part of the orientation too, we can go over some of the financial statements that you have access to and how you can navigate that. One of the two things, quick history. When I first came on board here, so you may or may not know, but as part of an AOS, we have a collection of different boards. And so we're actually dealing with 11 budgets and 11 audits. And so it is voluminous. But what we have done is to try to be more efficient. When I first came here, we were doing the whole paper chase. And that is board members would physically have to come in to the central office to review that hard copy statement, sign it. And we needed a quorum before we can release any funds. So that's one. And because people's lives and work, it was hard to navigate that and chase them down. So we moved to this DocuSign, which is, it's as secure as it would be if you were going to do a mortgage or refinance. So it's a secure certification system. That's one. Number two, what we also tried to do is put some information in there for board members. So you'll see some penciling in at what those items are to give an indication as to why those funds are being expended. But that doesn't mean if there's ever a question, and we get questions all the time, what's this for? What's that for? We want those calls. So if there's ever a question about what the funds are for, you can, as Todd said, feel free to call me, Nancy, or Gloria. We can provide that information. The other piece is that we're constantly running reports to make sure that we're reconciling the budget from funds that are expended from funds allocated. So, and Todd, I know we had drilled down into that more in the food service piece. That's where we were going. So we have not historically provided monthly reconciliation balance sheets, but we can at any time. And then, of course, there's the audit piece. So that's kind of a 10,000 foot view, Jamie, but we can drill down and walk you through that. And we want it to be as transparent and make sure you're comfortable and not signing anything or not signing anything that you're not comfortable with. Todd, I don't know if you want to add anything, and Gloria, please do.
I will add something, but Gloria, why don't you please take this time?
Sure. I just wanted to reiterate that, and Mark touched on this, that we have a multiple step process for checks and balances in this, and that, you know, our budget that's passed, it was passed last night by the town of Mount Desert, which is wonderful. Will go into effect in July. And I prepare a breakdown of that for the office manager, and then any purchases that come through our office for teacher budgets, which they can draw down from throughout the school year. They don't need to purchase everything in September or August, is they submit purchase orders, and then office manager checks accounts, balances. I approve it after it's been thoughtfully checked by the office manager, and then it's submitted into, you know, the orders made, and then it's submitted to the central office, to their business department. So there's a lot of steps along the way. And then I really enjoy the current budget report, the expense report that we get monthly. And that helps give me an idea of what the balances are in each of the budget lines, and learning about the flexibility between budget lines and how that all works. You know, this has taken a little time, but I feel that our budget's managed really well. So, and some expenses just come up, like the boilers that we had to manage last month.
I think the only thing I'd add, Jamie and Brian, is that we are so blessed to have a Nancy Thurlow, probably one of the best business managers in the business, and the office staff that we have. So I'd love an opportunity for you to meet with them and go over our process and make sure that you're comfortable with everything. So we'll find a time either collectively or individually that works for you both.
Thank you. So at the end of if you scroll down, when you look at the DocuSign document, you will see what Gloria was speaking about, where we have a budget and current reporting period and expenses to date. So, which is a kind of a new addition in the past year because of DocuSign. And so I like it. It's a welcomed addition to that document.
And if you want to, if there's ever an item and you want to see the backup, you want to see the invoice, we can provide that at any time. Before that DocuSign goes out to Gloria has indicated, you know, they'll put together the request. They come to the office. Before that goes out to school committee, I review that and sign off on it also. So there are multiple steps before we can release any of the funds.
Any other questions? Nope. Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. I do not know of any public comment. Mark?
I'm not aware of any at this time.
Okay.
Todd, and just again for Jamie and Brian, you know, we're operating remotely right now, and we hope to get back to in-person meetings soon. But what we typically will do, people are allowed to, when we're in person, come and do public comment. But they can submit it electronically. And recently we've been piloting during the remote of having people, if they want to come give live public comment, to be able to do that. And we've been doing that at the AOS meetings. So if you have any questions on that, let us know. But no, Todd, nothing that I'm aware of at this time.
Okay, thank you. So that will take us to reports and updates. Gloria?
Thank you. So looking at enrollment, we've had a couple of new students transition into school, one from far away and one in our backyard. So one of them is only reflected in this month's update. However, the other will be reflected in next month's enrollment update. Our virtual academy and homeschool students, our schools making preparations to reach out to them, to invite them to be a part of programs, field trips. We have some nature-based field trips that are happening this spring that the teachers have planned with vans. Our 6th grades going out to Islesford one day with the bikes. We have a fleet of, what do you call it, a fleet of bikes? We have 14 bikes. We're going to take the bikes out to Islesford for the day. Really kind of creative trips that they've come up with. And so we're looking to put out the word to Virtual Academy homeschool students to try to incorporate them into those programs to get them acclimated to being in school, because we won't have a Virtual Academy program next year. Including them in things such as Arts Week, which will be happening. The students will be working with Ms. Westfall and an artist. It'll look a little different, but each group, I do believe the K4 students have 3 one-hour sessions with an artist, and the 5 through 8 students have 2 90-minute sessions with an artist throughout Arts Week. So it's a little different, but awesome just the same. And so I thank Ms. Westfall for putting that together. Let's see here. We have 2 potential drivers who are training with Mr. Sargent. We're working on one of our trainees has just passed they had a CDL license, they had to get their bus driver endorsement, and they passed that. And so we're super happy. We're in the process of processing paperwork, and I've nominated him to Dr. Gauss. And so we'll see some forward motion on that probably at our June meeting, I think. Really exciting. Mr. Sargent's been doing 2 jobs all year long. And so I'm so happy that we're going to have another bus driver at our school. We are in the midst of interviews for positions at our school. We've had a wonderful group of qualified applicants apply for positions. We have a middle school literacy specialist, an RTI coordinator position, and a math specialist coach for K-8, a world language teacher, and 2 one-year K-8 positions. Those have all been posted. Interviews are in progress, and I will have nominations for candidates to Dr. Gauss probably by midweek next week. These committees have been comprised of so many people from our school. Super challenging to schedule things when we don't have any substitutes, but we've managed it. Let's see here. I do want to clarify that the 2 one-year teaching positions, one will be a primary and one will be on the 5-6 team for next school year. And it's my goal to have all the folks settled and in place so that we can update families to what our programming configurations will look like next year. We're getting there. So that's pretty exciting. Cindy Lambert will be returning to MDES as a full-time tech integrator. Interesting situation. Our position expanded from 40% to 100%. Trenton, where she works, as a 60% tech integrator, expanded to 100%. And so Cindy had the option in accordance with our collective bargaining agreement to choose which school she was going to be in full-time, and she chose MDES. So we're really thankful to have Cindy on board, and she's a real asset to our school. And so that's exciting. Liz Farrell, if you guys haven't met Liz, boy, I wish everybody could see each other all together in one place again. If you guys haven't met Miss Liz, she's been in ed tech at our school for the past 2 years. She does so much behind the scenes work. We ensure that all the students' masks are washed every night and they're delivered every morning. She's responsible for that. She's an integral part of getting our food service, our breakfast delivered, our lunches delivered, anything, boy, all of the things that kind of happen behind the scenes, Liz is Liz is a big part of it. And she does the important job of sweeping at the end of the day that makes sure all the kids get on the bus before we wave the buses off. She is a staple on our playground and at recess, and just a consistent supporter of our students and fan of our students. And we're going to miss her when she moves on. But I just wanted to give a great big thank you to her. A lot of other updates. The kindergarten screenings tomorrow. So our incoming kindergarten class, we have 9 students or 10 students signed up to come to the screening. I'm hoping it doesn't rain because we're holding the parent portion outside, and the kindergartners will be, the upcoming kindergartners will be in the gym participating in the screening. We're actually pretty excited to have field trips going on. The 3rd grade went to the Historical Society on Monday for the vintage classroom, and they signed the vans out and drove the vans there. And we're continuing our Thursday afternoon programming through the month of May. And so our last IRMA early release program for students in K-6 will be on May 27th, which is the last Thursday in May. Let's see here. We have 8th grade promotion tentatively scheduled for June 8th, and our field day, our COVID friendly field day, will be on June 9th, the next day, and the last student day is on June 10th. We're in the midst of planning and carrying out our assessments, end of the year assessments, which will give us a benchmark or an understanding of student progress and learning throughout this year. Students will be participating in the NWAs as their state assessment in grades 3 through 8. There are some math assessments, high leverage math assessments that will be done with students in K-8. Developmental reading assessment will be done with students in K-4. And we'll use all of this information over the summer as we look to plan for supports and challenges and programming for students for the next school year. So with all that's going on, we are doing great. We're looking forward to, getting this assessment data, looking forward to all of the end of the year activities. And I can honestly say, looking forward to a little summer vacation. These teachers have worked so hard this year, and some of them have worked in places they've never been before. And I couldn't be more proud of their efforts, like Todd said. So we're in a good spot, but there are 26 days left till summer vacation. That's all I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any questions for Gloria? No.
Okay.
Thanks, Gloria.
Oh,
yeah, no, that was great. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm sure you have a lot of students who are happy to have sports, the spring sports going on in a way that they haven't seen in a year. So I'm sure that's been a very welcome change in school.
So much so, and I meant to include that in there too. And we have students that are, I'm so glad you said that. So Andrew Carlson and Carrie Taylor are track coaches, and they've been collaborating with Bruce Norwood, who's offered to help swing back and do a second bus run to get our kids to the high school for practices. And there are a lot of students that are, the roster kept expanding, that are participating in track that have never done track before. So that's wonderful. And it sure is nice to see the softball and baseball teams out on the field. And I want to have a great big thank you to Bruce Tripp and to Leanne Sargent for all the work that they've done on the fields and getting our grounds ready for that to happen. It sure is nice to see kids out there participating. Yeah, thanks for mentioning.
And it's great to see the students on the field with students from other schools.
Yes.
That's really great. Mark.
I just thank you, Todd. I just want to give a shout out to not just the kids and the staff, but the community, because people have been phenomenal. With the updates to masking guidelines that we're following the CDC and the governor's orders. I just have to say, being out and about in the community and at events, and the athletic administrators and coaches, the community has been incredibly respectful and compliant. And that's really the gold standard, because it allows us to do exactly what you just said, have these activities and be able to interact with the with kids from other schools, which is good stuff. So I just want to say thank you for that.
And then the only other question I have, and maybe you're not ready to discuss it, and I would understand that, is 8th grade. You know, usually this time of the year, we're having discussions about trips or fundraising. And so I just didn't know if you need anything from us.
Yeah. I have a meeting on the books tomorrow with the 8th grade advisors to talk about promotion planning. And I have dates and times scheduled in our end of the year planning calendar for MDES that hasn't been shared with kids or parents yet, but the whole community knows now, to provide some 8th grade adventures for our students that aren't, you know, traveling to go back city or to Montreal or to Boston or things like that, but are adventures specifically for them above and beyond what we're doing with our K-7 kids in school. So there's things in the works for those guys, and there'll be more information coming out about that because that's really important. They have been wonderful, and the elementary principals are also collaborating on another surprise for the 8th graders. So
great. Not that I think we need to be involved, but in the past we've always had to vote on something, and I want to make sure that you have anything you need from us. So it sounds like you do.
Yeah, thank you, Todd.
Any other updates? Mark, I was unable to attend the policy committee last week.
I'll be giving an update on Monday, Todd, at the AOS meeting, and certainly Jamie and Brian, if you're available, hopefully you'll be able to attend both the high school and the AOS meetings. We'll pass along the agendas, but I can give an overview, Todd. But we're moving methodically through our review. I can do it now, or update it on Monday, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, Monday's fine by me.
Yep.
I mean,
yep. And I think too, the other thing, it's not on the agenda, Todd. I don't see it, and maybe you'll be putting it on the next one. But you know, one of the things that's come up that Christy has discussed, Christy, the AOS chair, is that the board chair updates that we do and bringing those back to local school committees for discussion. And I think what Christy's plan is, so this is probably a pretty relevant update. Christy's plan was to work through the chairs to say, hey, you know, if we have those board chair updates at the end of the month, which I believe is her plan, then having the ability to go back to local boards the week after or the 2 weeks after, have those discussions, and then bring those back to the AOS for any other discussion, and then the updates that way. And I think that's a really solid way of keeping everybody in the loop, keeping everybody informed, and staying transparent. So I like that plan.
Right. So as you said, the idea was we would have had a chair meeting last week. We would have put that information on this agenda for this week to prepare for a more thorough and in-depth conversation at the AOS next week. So yeah, it's great. I mean, it's perfect. And that's what we should be doing.
And I think the other thing is has a lot of merit, is a workshop for the board at the end of the year, right before the busy summer season, and then, you know, when things wind down after tourist season, before we get into winter, another update or another workshop, because we have a lot of important priorities and initiatives underway, but I think the board is looking at prioritizing those initiatives and giving focus in terms of where they want the administration to set their energy. So that will be coming up as well. And the other thing that's relevant, Todd, it came up, the mission and the vision statement that we have that are in policy. It's time to review those and revisit those. And I can't think of a better time when you're trying to prioritize initiatives and also doing a superintendent search that'll be coming up.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So I know we're going to be talking about both those searches at the AOS meeting.
Yes.
And so I don't know that we have anything to report out yet on that. I know you sent an email out at one point, but so we really don't have anything to report out on that until Monday.
So one of the executive sessions, I can say, one of them is for contract negotiations on Monday. The second one is a personnel, and that's for Christy to update the board on initial stages of superintendent search. And that'll be, that update will be provided to you Monday.
Okay, great. Anything else, Mark?
Nope, I don't have anything at this time, Todd. Thank you.
Okay. So go on to discussion items, and we put the calendar discussion item back on our agenda from last AOS meeting, where we had a recommendation that was brought to us. And so again, following through with what Mark just said about an initiative to keep these conversations moving and to have a chance to really talk about these issues. And discussion items. We put it back on the agenda. So does anyone have any questions from last month's meeting about the calendar and what is proposed and recommended? Okay, seeing none, we can move on from that. That's good. So thank you, Mark, for putting all that together. I know it took a lot of work and a lot of energy, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the reflection, Todd, as I think back about it, you were dead on. You know, in the middle of a pandemic, it's been a hard time, and I think, you know, hindsight's 2020. We've learned some things, but I think the process and where we're ending up is thoughtful, and I'm excited about how we're going to be able to put together the feedback on, if the board decides to adopt this, how we can reach out to staff and parents and see how we can build more capacity. So thank you.
Yeah. And so we'll call the last month's meeting was our first discussion and first reading of that. That will be an action item for next meeting. Correct? That's
the recommendation. Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So not hearing any other questions, we'll move on to our action items for this evening. We have 4 action items. They're all annual action items that happen this time of the year. So we can take them in order here. We have the first, which is the election of chair and vice chair. The others that we'll have here, again, Mark, you'll have to just review a little bit.
Yeah, I can walk you through those,
okay.
Todd. Yeah.
But they're annual events that we do here. So
those, I think, Todd, are specific to, you talked about consent agendas.
Yes.
And there's a classic example of some items that could be considered that way.
And that was my thought, is that these could be consent agenda items. So election of chair and vice chair. I know that current Gloria.
I apologize for this,
Yep.
but I don't see that on my agenda. Am I looking at the wrong agenda?
I have, are you looking at the May 5th?
Yes.
And you don't, I mean, I have, it's attached to the Zoom link, the agenda's there. The first action item is reorganization of school committee, election of chair and vice chair. No?
And then we have appointment of truant officer, attendance officer, and school physician.
I mean, I'm working off, Todd, do you want me to forward the one I'm looking at? Because I think
you and I are looking at the same thing, for sure.
I have most of the other things. I just don't have what you're speaking of. Can you just repeat that first line? And I think I'll be fine.
It's reorganization of school committee, Gloria.
Thank you.
Election of chair and vice chair, and I'll forward it to you. But let me see if I can send this to everybody right now. I apologize if you didn't get that.
I did get that one, Mark.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how I got it.
It's okay.
Well, it
Susan,
it is posted, Gloria, and I guess if we just want to move forward for the purposes of the minutes, we should be. Todd, on that note, and I'm fine either way. Sometime if it's going to be, do you want to handle that first item, or did you want me to take nominations? Or
why don't you handle that?
Okay, so typically what happens is that at this point in the meeting, the superintendent, as the secretary for the board, would just take any nominations for chair. Presently, the chair of the Mount Desert School Committee is Todd, and the vice chair is Teresa. So at this time, what I'd like to do is take nominations for chair only, and then after that process, I'd like to turn it back over to Todd. And for the purposes of this meeting, if Todd is the consideration, and Todd wants to accept, if we elect a new chair, Todd would still continue to chair this meeting, is what I was going to say. Sorry. So at this time, I'll open it up. Nominations for chair. Do we have any nominations?
I would like to nominate Todd as a chair as he continues in this position. I think you're doing a fine job, Todd. So it would be good if for the continuity and the good job that you do. I'd like to see you continue in that spot if you feel comfortable.
Thank you, Teresa. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Susan. Before I go to discussion, Todd, are you willing to accept that nomination?
I will.
Thank you, Todd. Is there any discussion on that nomination? Are there any other nominations for chair at this time? Seeing none, we'll record this. We don't need to do a roll call. For the record, I'll annotate what the votes are. So all in favor of Todd Graham as chair, and this will be for fiscal year 22, the school year 2021 to 2022. All those in favor, if you could raise your hand, say aye. And that is unanimous, including Todd. So congratulations, Mr. Chair. I'm glad you decided to stay on, and I'm happy to turn the meeting back over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. So now we are looking for a nomination for vice chair. It is currently Teresa. So do we have a nomination for a vice chair? So Susan, I know that we've discussed this a little bit. I would nominate Susan to be vice chair. Can we get a second?
I second it.
Okay. So are there any discussions or comments on that before we move on to a vote?
Todd,
no? I would go ahead, Mark.
I would just ask if Susan's willing to accept the nomination.
I will, yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I will. So Susan, are you willing to accept that nomination?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thanks. Yes. Thanks.
So again, as Mark started us off, if we can get a show of hands to approve that motion to elect Susan as vice chair, and that is unanimous. So thank you, Teresa. Thank you for your service as vice chair. We really appreciated it. It was nice to know that you were in that position. So thank
Todd,
you.
Just for the rest, Susan, did you vote?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't see your hand. I just wanted to make sure for the record. Yeah, okay, thank you. Sorry.
I wasn't sure I was supposed to, so I just sort of sat here.
It's okay. It's good to vote for yourself. It's
yeah,
good.
I voted for myself, so.
You did? Okay.
Yes. Gloria.
Can you tell me who made the motion and who seconded that, please?
I made the motion,
and
Teresa
did the second.
Thank you.
We have a chair and a vice chair moving forward. That's great. Thank you, everyone. Our next three action items, as we already said, are things that we do every year. I'll let Mark, who historically always goes through these, to get everybody up to speed on what these are and why we are voting on them.
So the first are appointments of truancy officer, attendance officer, and school physician. And as draconian as that may sound, much of these are embedded in statute. We're required to appoint or name these. A truancy officer historically has been our resource officer or our chief, and that has been Jim Willis. And Gloria can expand upon this, but it's typically in name only. We don't really engage the chief in any capacity on this. But I would nominate for truancy officer Jim Willis, for attendance officer Principal Gloria Del Sandro, and for physician Dr. Mark Kandich. And just a note for physician, we work with MDI Hospital and work through each of the individual health centers. So if Dr. Kandich isn't available, we do have coverage. So my nominations would be, again, truancy, Jim Willis, attendance, Gloria Del Sandro, and physician, Dr. Mark Kandich. And this is characterized generally as a housekeeping item, if you will.
So we need a motion.
Can we submit it as a slate? Or
you may, if that's the will of the board, or you can pull each one out, whatever you choose, Teresa.
I move that we accept the 3 people, the truant officer, Jim Willis, the attendance officer, Gloria Del Sandro, and the school physician as Dr. Kandich, Mark Kandich, in those appointments.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Susan? Thank you, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mark, I would, if we can, are we allowed to do away with the roll call now and do, I know we are at the AOS.
Yes, Todd, I'm sorry. Yeah, I checked, and so as long as we're recording, which we are, so we have a record of this. The only thing that we ask, and I apologize, I should have mentioned this, when you do the votes, if they are in fact unanimous, you just verbally say that. If there is a differential of the vote, just stating who the yeas and the nays were. So yes, you don't need to do roll call. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. So we will take that. If there are no questions or discussion on this, we'll take that to a vote. So all in favor, can I get a yay? Yay?
Yay.
Yep.
Yes.
And any nays? No. So that was unanimous, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. The next 2 pieces might be a little bit confusing, but they're items that board members who've been here before have seen these. So authorization for superintendent to apply for and receive state and federal funds. So aside from local budgets that are passed and within the purview of the school committee, there may be various grants, whether they be state or federal or relief funds that we are eligible for. I am not able to apply or receive those funds without school committee authorization. So this motion would allow your superintendent to do that. And then the second piece to that, which is a separate motion and a separate action, is authorization to participate in consolidated application for use of Title I and Title IIA funds, and authorization for Bar Harbor to be the fiscal agent of these funds. So you need to do 2 separate actions, but that separate piece on the Title I and Title IIA, I want to be really clear about why we do that. As you know, each individual school committee has its own budget, its own purview. And oftentimes in the AOS structure, we report things out 8 different times, as opposed to a single district that might do it once. Here's an example where we are able to be a little bit more efficient. So we apply for these funds, and the reason we use Bar Harbor as the fiscal agent is nothing more than alphabetical. It begins with a B, they're the first one, and Bar Harbor would be the fiscal agent, but all of the funds that are entitled to Mount Desert Elementary go directly to Mount Desert Elementary. It's an accounting thing only. So the schools and the students and the staff that are to receive those funds do receive them. This is more for accounting and auditing purposes. I'm pleased to take any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? No.
On the the authorization for the superintendent to apply for and receive state and federal funds, that's specific to MDES, and there's probably going to be a comparable one at the high school and at the AOS level. Is that right?
You're going to see this across the board, Brian, correct? You will. Yeah, we need to, yeah, we do this at every board. Yep.
Which is why part of that conversation about trying to figure out whether consent agenda is allowed or how we can work some of this together to save some of that discussion time.
And a good example, if I might, Brian, is that, you know, all the CRF funds, the Corona Relief Funds, those, Gloria had direct purview over those. None of those came to the superintendent office. And so the coordination of those funds and the grant pieces are oftentimes at the building level. But on something like Title I or Title II, that's overseen by Julie Meltzer, or the Director of Teaching and Learning, and works collaboratively with the principals.
So we need a motion.
I'll move to authorize the superintendent to apply for and receive state and federal funds. We have to do two separate ones, right, Mark?
Correct, Susan. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion from Susan, a second from Brian. Before we take that to a vote, are there any additional discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll take that to the vote. So all in favor, say yay.
Aye.
Aye. And do we have any nays this evening? Hearing none, that is unanimous. Thank you. And then the last is the authorization to participate. So Mark, again, you just told us about that. I don't need to know if we need to review that again. Does anyone have any questions about that before we take that to a vote? No. Okay, so we will need another motion here for that.
I'll move to authorize to participate in consolidated application for the use of Title I and Title IIA funds, and authorization for Bar Harbor to be the fiscal agent for these funds.
A second?
Second that.
Brian. We have a motion from Susan and a second from Brian. If we have any discussions or questions before we take that to a vote. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. That is also unanimous, Mark. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That is all we have for action items for this evening. So we are on to other business.
Todd?
I have a couple things, but Mark, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, just circle back. Jamie and Brian, if you want to let me know what works best for you, I'll try to coordinate something that works for both of your schedules. But again, when we can get together, there are things like freedom of access, information training, and other things that just want to introduce you to staff here so that we can make sure that you guys have the resources you need to answer any questions you have. So I'll be reaching out to you guys shortly. Thank you very much.
So in other business, Mark, I thought I would ask about in-person meetings. And, you know, I do get, we talk about this, I hear about it, and I just thought maybe we should discuss it here to see what we're thinking and what the timeline may be.
Todd, I think that, you know, we undertook these remote meetings at a time that obviously was at the height of the pandemic. I don't know what people's vaccination status is, but I'm comfortable. I think this is a discussion we need to have Monday, but I think the sooner we can get back to in-person meetings as people are comfortable, the better off. We're starting to hold events where visitors are starting to come back to our campuses safely. And so, yes, I think we can start by considering, if you as the chair and the board is amenable to it, how we can get back to in-person meetings, probably first and foremost in the gym, recognizing that we still need to continue to follow the guidelines. There'll still be masking and physical distancing, but there's a lot to be said for the in-person pieces, and I'm excited to get back to that, look forward to that. So I hope, and maybe that's a good way to close out as we get to June, that we can end our year and celebrate by having an in-person meeting. And then, I'm all in if that's where you folks want to go. I think it's the right thing to do, and we're headed in the right direction. The only caveat to that is that we're going to continue. We've followed CDC and MDOE and DHHS and every other acronym. We've followed all the guidelines, and we're going to continue to do it. And I've said many, many times, for some people, what we're doing is too much, and for others, it's not enough. But I think at the end of the day, we've been able to fare really well, our kids and our staff and our schools, by following the guidelines. So I guess in short, what I'll say is we'll continue to monitor local data and follow the guidelines. But if it's the will of the board, I'd love to see us go back to in-person meetings.
I guess for me, I would, if we think that we can design that meeting forum and do it safely, then I would like to see us be back in person. I believe we miss some of what we get out of a meeting. Although the Zoom meetings have gone really well, I think, for us all winter, extremely well. But it would be nice to get that part of an in-person meeting back.
So why don't we tentatively plan, the June one to be, we'll work on that, the background and the logistics. But if things continue to trend the way they are, that would be a good thing. And we'll work with you to make that happen if that's where you want to go.
Sure. And if anyone has any thoughts or comments, just let me know in the meantime before we get to that meeting. We'll probably have a similar discussion at AOS level, I'm sure. So yes, Brian.
So I guess as far as I'm concerned, following CDC guidelines is essentially what we want to do in the Department of Ed. So, I mean, I'm vaccinated. I've been vaccinated for weeks. Got lucky that I got a single shot. And so, being able to do in-person stuff, I think is perfectly fine as long as we are following those guidelines. So if we have, full vaccination amongst our group, there shouldn't be any issues with being able to get together. And I do prefer having the in-person meetings. I've only barely gotten to the point where I can accept Zoom meetings, and I've hesitated from wanting to kind of go into the mode of accepting them easily and completely. I've sort of resisted that a little bit. So I would like to go towards in-person meetings if we can.
I agree. I'll just speak up and say, Todd, that I agree. I think we can go in person. I too have been vaccinated, and I just think having the in-person meetings allows for a much better forum. We can get to know each other a little better and allows for better discussion. So the online thing gets a little old after a while. I think everybody's there.
Okay, that's great. So we'll work towards that for June. Yeah. All right, great. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other business before we continue?
Just to let you know, Todd, I'm really excited about the possibility of 12-year-old students and older being afforded the opportunity to receive a vaccine. Obviously, this will be a choice for students and families, parents, but I'm encouraged by that. So that's good news on the horizon.
Okay. So
2 to 12-year-olds starting September is the trajectory that I heard.
That would be good. That would be great. So other business is voting. So for voting, obviously here at MDES, this committee, everyone votes. When we go to our AOS and our high school, we have 3 votes at those meetings. So what we usually do as a committee at a meeting, we will decide on who is voting at those meetings for 2-3 months at a time. And then we'll switch that around for 2 or 3 months and so on. We do that so that we all know ahead of time who is voting. So when we get to those meetings, we know who is voting. If we can't be there and we're a voter, just let myself know and we will adjust accordingly. But having that knowledge ahead of time works. I know for me, I do some traveling in the fall. Hopefully this year that's going to happen for work. And if that does, I usually take myself off the list for those few months because I may not be present at some of those meetings during that time. So I'm just giving you some background, Brian and Jamie, of how we do this. So I have for our May, June, and July I don't know if we should continue on to August. I have myself, Susan, and Teresa, and then we'll switch it up when we get into either August or September, depending on what we're doing. So hopefully everybody's comfortable with that. Last year we did meet throughout the summer. Typically we don't. Okay. So I don't know what that's going to look like. Mark's probably going to tell us.
I think,
and Gloria, maybe Gloria wants some meetings during the summer. It will be up to you guys.
Well, I think, Todd, at a minimum, I can see the AOS board meeting only for, continuity of making sure that school reopening plans, that board members are comfortable. So I can see that occurring. Typically, we have that hiatus in the summer, but in these conditions, at a minimum, AOS. But certainly, if you or Gloria want to have any meetings over the summer, we're available and we'll be ready to facilitate.
Okay. So again, I'll just repeat that for May, June, July, the voters will be myself, Susan, and Teresa, and we'll revisit that as needed at those meetings. And then again, going into August and the school year. Speaking of that, at one meeting, it must be the June meeting, Mark, don't we give authorization for hire to the superintendent?
Yes, okay. That'll come in June. And
okay.
Again, for Jamie and for Brian, positions that are hired, there's a 3-part process. There's a nomination that goes to the school committee. Only the school committee can approve the hiring of teachers and administrators. And so there's the nomination, there's the approval by school committee, and the third part of that process is superintendent issuing a contract. The only piece that changes is in the summer, if the boards don't meet, the boards give proxy to the superintendent to hire in the summer with the condition that at the first meeting, the board must approve those hires. So that's what that's all about. And typically the boards take those actions in June.
Okay, that's good. So there's no other business that I have. We have future agenda items. Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Oops, sorry.
Just quickly, we have the high school and the AOS meeting coming up. That's Monday, is that right?
Yes.
Just so I can be sure to have that on my schedule. Could you tell me that timing for that?
Yes, we'll send you the agenda, Brian and Jamie, and it's 5 p.m. It is remote for the high school one, and it's 6 p.m. for the AOS. We've been pretty good at being on track, but it's 5 and 6 that evening. We try to stack them and do back-to-back because it saves some time for the boards, but that's where we're at. I'll make sure those agendas go out to you. Todd, if I may, I just want to go back and double check with Gloria. I think we're okay, but Gloria, we didn't have any nominations on probationary or continuing contract, correct?
We took care of those at our last meeting.
Right.
Thank you. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I do have a process question though, if it's possible. So if I do have nominations or you approve nominations of new hires, Dr. Gauss, is that something that can be a special school committee meeting?
Yes, it is. Okay. It is. Todd can set, and the board can set a special meeting at any time. That's correct.
I just want to plant that seed,
right.
Because that may be something.
Right, because I know you have some recommendations coming forward, and we can work with Todd to get that squared away. Yes.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, that's great. Future agenda items. I guess this is another, will be an odd year for accounting in food services. So I guess we'll skip again this year, trying to reconcile what food service is and the costs and how to account for that again this year. Because I just don't see how we're going to kind of untangle all of that for this year to make sense of it for another budget season. So
it's also, Todd, compounded by, the subsidy we've received here. And so it really is going to be a little bit squirrely until we get post-pandemic.
Okay. All right. I just had that written down because it's usually in June we are we transfer money from one place to another to cover for food services. So it's an annual thing for me. You know that. So, so are there any other future agenda items anyone would like to see on the agenda for, was it June 1st? Is that it?
June 2nd?
June 2nd, sorry. No, hearing none. Okay. So our next meeting is Wednesday, June 2nd, 4:00. Looks like we will shoot for an in-person meeting, but we have plenty of time to figure out how that's going to be. And again, we'll probably have the discussion at the AOS, I'm sure, on Monday. So if we have nothing else to add, Gloria?
Yeah, so last time we met in person, we were in the gym, which was, Are you interested in me checking with Ellie to see if the Mellon Room is open at the library?
Mellon Room, yeah.
Bigger, smaller space.
I guess I would say this. Yes, I am. I saw some heads nod. Yeah, the only thing I would ask is, let's make sure the teachers, we usually have some people join us, right? When we're in person. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure to have it in person, it's not just about us and us, being able to get together. But for me anyway, it's about being able to see you and have a better meeting in person, but have our community join us as well. So I just want to make sure that the Mellon Room is the best room for us to have the community join us. Mm-hmm. Tell you the truth, I haven't been in there for a year now, so I can't even picture it in my head. But I guess it would be large enough for us and some community members, right?
Is your I'm not sure what you call the amphitheater area outside. Is that even a possibility, Gloria? Are you comfortable with that? The tiered seating across from the art room.
The floor.
Yeah, that's a nice area. I mean. Yeah. For physical distancing and spacing, we could, and I guess because the cafeteria is a classroom right now, right, Gloria? So, yeah. So, I think we can work on some options and make sure before we set it that, we run it by you and make sure you're comfortable with it.
Well, I'm going to be comfortable with it. Right. It's Gloria, whatever you think we can do. I'm just putting that out there that I just want to make sure we have space for the community members as well, not just us. So,
thanks, Tom.
Right, and kind of on that note, like there needs to be both in-person and remote access for that meeting at the same time, right? So there's got to be technological resources put towards allowing public access for those that don't want to show up in person.
Well, I don't know that answer.
So, Todd,
I don't know that answer, Brian.
Do you want me to weigh in, Todd? So, Brian, that's a good point, and I think that's something that boards are gonna have to task us with. Prior to the pandemic, we did not have remote capability, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. We just did not do that. When we went to the pandemic mode remote, obviously we had to provide the public access. The question will now become, is that the expectation? Is that what we want to continue to do? And in previous positions, I've seen that, but I will tell you the logistics of that, how we're staffed, that will be a challenge with our board structure. I'm not saying we can't do it. It's just that I'm acknowledging that we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and have some conversations about how we budget and staff that. We've been able to make it happen, but the person right now, you see that MDI RSS AOS 91 icon, that's Josh, our technology guy. He's a one-man show and he's doing all 11 of our boards. And it's, again, I'm not saying we can't or shouldn't. I agree with being transparent, but it has been a load. I see Todd nodding his head because he knows we've talked about this only from the realm of Todd was a champion for facilitating public comment in a way that if people wanted to do it, this is going to sound weird, live remotely, they're able to do it. and Josh made that happen. So I guess we just need to have a discussion, and whatever the board decides, we're going to make happen. But we're going to need some resources.
It's a good question, Brian, because I mean, it's something we need to figure out, obviously.
I don't know what the answer is exactly, but there's sort of a pattern that we have right now. Yes. And what do we want to do with it going forward?
And I can tell you across the AOS, Brian, it's all over, literally all over the board, where you have some communities that were prior to the pandemic doing the live and simulcast, and some that were doing, just the live. And but people have found that the remote access is a way that they can participate. And so I understand that. Sorry, Todd, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's good. I would like to see in the future that we have these recorded one way or another, whether it's a video recording or just an audio recording, but to have something for people to go back to. I believe it's important to have that for people to go back and to listen if they can't attend. So okay. So it sounds like, Mark, you do have a little work. Somebody has some work to figure that out.
No, that's on me.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you, everybody. I don't think we have nothing else on our agenda. It doesn't sound like we have anything else to discuss. So I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, so moved Susan, second Teresa. All in favor, and goodbye.